I've been a member of NAM since 2006 convention in Norfolk, Virginia. Now, I was a collegiate young artist coming there to be a performer. And so Professor Carter, little did I know, he was a president at that time. I didn't know anything about the organization. He said, come to Norfolk and come to this convention. I got your hotels, and I got your registration and everything. So he took care of all that, and I was off to Norfolk. Little did I know that I would meet like Adolphus Hailstork and Joseph Joubert and all these people that I've performed their music. I've seen them on TV. I've seen them in concert halls. They're right there. I'm interacting with these people, and I was floored. I was shocked, and that's continued on every year. I've come back every year since then. Every convention I've been there. My kids have actually grown up coming to NAM conventions every year. We make it our family vacation time. It's also like usually around the 23rd of July, which is also my wedding anniversary. So my first convention was actually our first wedding anniversary. So we have been coming and celebrating our anniversary every year at NAM. My greatest NAM memory was probably be a convention in Florida. We had the opening mass meeting. They said, oh, Michael, I need you to conduct Lift Every Voice. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I get up here and I was conducting it, and I just got these chills like all over my arms, like the whole sanctuary filled with song. And that organ, it was just breathtaking. Let's see, my funniest memory is probably the banner parade. Now, this is something that you got to experience. If something, they are hilarious. The banner parade is everyone from branches, all the branches getting up there and presenting their banner and doing a skit or a song or a little dance to show off, their talent. NAM has impacted my life in a positive way. Every convention I leave with a sense of pride. I leave with a sense of drive, a drive to do better, to be a better musician, to try to live up to all the talent that I had just spent the week absorbing from different composers, from different conductors, and different arrangers, different performers. It is awe-inspiring to come to a convention and just be consumed with all this talent, and just knowing that that I have a personal relationship with that person. I got a piece from a guy, one of my friends, and he was like, "Hey, you heard of this?" I was like, "Oh, I know this person. That's such and such. That's Joseph Joubert." He was saying it. We doing a piece by Joseph Joubert. I was like, man, it's Joubert. Come on now. I know him. No, but it was. It's just been a pleasure being a part of NAM, just because you have such a variety of talented people that are there just to help and share what they have, and to share it with you and to help lift you up. That's why I think it's important to stay connected with NAM, because it is staying grounded to the excellence that is within you.
Hello, I'm UZ Brown. I am chairman of the Division of Creative and Performing Arts at Morehouse College, and I'm also past president of the National Association of Negro Musicians from 1996 until 2002. I have been a member of the Metropolitan Atlanta Musicians Association all of its existence, and actually was its first and remain its treasurer. I want to tell you a little bit about the history and background of the Metropolitan Atlanta Musicians Association. The seeds of what would become the Metropolitan Atlanta Musicians Association actually began with my mentor and dear colleague and friend, the late Dr. Wendell P. Whalum, who was very instrumental in developing the Mama chapter, as we call it, the Metropolitan Atlanta Musicians Association, because it was on the heels of Treemonisha that was premiered in 1972 in Atlanta under the direction of Robert Shaw, that a great deal of excitement gathered around music and Atlanta, and as a matter of fact, it was during the time of the last performance of Treemonisha that a meeting was held on the Morehouse campus in Brawley Hall Room 313 that was the beginning of the National Black Music Caucus of the Music Educators National Association. It was an exciting time, and as a result of all that had gone on in 1972, the National Office of the National Association of Negro Musicians decided that it would host its conference in Atlanta in 1973. That was the first time a conference of NANM had been held in Atlanta, but it was hosted by the national office, in that there was not at that time a Metropolitan Atlanta Musicians Association. And the people in Atlanta were loosely referred to as the Atlanta Group. The Atlanta Musicians Group worked as a result of Wendell Whalum's effort continuously from 1973 and began formally in 1982 with a charter from the National Association of Negro Musicians. It's important to note that in 1973, Dr. Wendell Whalum was also elected to the board, so he really became the first board member from the Metropolitan Atlanta Musicians Association, though it had not been formed, and served as a member of the board from 1973 until 1975. And it was Wendell Whalum, at the time of his death, who remained connected to NAM as its first vice president when he passed in 1987. Between those years of 1973 and 1982, when we received our charter, Dr. Whalum and some contingency of Atlanta had gone to every national convention thereafter. A group of musicians met in 1981 in the spring at the Piccadilly Hotel at Greenbrier Mall to discuss developing a chapter, a branch of the National Association of Negro Musicians. That dinner meeting was hosted by the Reverend Dr. Walter L. Kimbrough, who has always been a great supporter of music and was none less involved in the formation of this group. He actually attended the meeting in addition to providing the funding for that meal, and it was simply discussed how we would become organized. In the fall of 1981, we met again at the house of Dr. Sharon Willis, and we decided at that time that we would call ourselves the Metropolitan Atlanta Musicians Association, which we all had a laugh about because we informally referred to it as MAMA. It was at that time that our first national president was officially elected, who was Reverend H. Allen Green, and there were a number of other appointments made that would be prominent players in MAMA for the duration of its history. We received our official charter from the National Association of Negro Musicians at the 1982 Chicago Convention. I hasten to say that at the same time we received the charter, there were concerns which were expressed on part of those who were in our region at the time, the Southeastern Region, that resulted in a position paper written by Dr. Calvin Grimes, who was on the faculty at Morehouse, along with Dr. Wendell Whalum. They crafted this document, and each of us who were involved at that time, who were actually charter members, along with two other persons from the Southeastern Region, joined in and signed off on that letter. Those charter members were Wendell Whalum, Calvin Grimes, H. Allen Green, Hilda Jenkins Allen, Robert Bolton, Willis Bolton, Lauren Jenrette, Gregory Sheldon Nash, Ella Lewis, Sharon Willis, and Mary Frances Arnold. Those who signed off on that petition were Wendell Whalum, Calvin Grimes, H. Allen Green, Robert Bolton, Lauren Jenrette, Gregory Nash, Hilda Jenkins Allen, and Ella Lewis. And Ed Artis signed off on this. He was at that time living in Birmingham and the organist at Second Baptist. Also, John Hunter, who came to us from Voorhees in South Carolina. It was the result of that petition that it stirred some really interesting buzz and controversy at the NANM convention, because it was both a compliment to the 60 plus at that time years of the existence of NANM, and simultaneously a criticism of some of its operations. There was just a need to readdress how the organization did business. And we did not simply complain in this position paper and walk away. Most of us became very active at the regional and national levels, and remain dedicated to this organization even now. I have always been a firm believer that if you do not contribute, don't complain. And so rather complaining and walking away, we rolled up our sleeves and got to work. Because it's Wendell Whalum who said to me long ago, if all that you can do is to look at the condition of this organization and find criticism and walk away, then it's probably best that you do anyway, because you mean very little to this organization and its survival. How true that was. And as a result of the coalition of the Metropolitan Atlanta Musicians Association, it went on to host two other national conventions, one in 1989 and another in 2000, the year 2000. Both were very exciting conventions with some unique offerings. In 1989, there was a stage presentation of William Grant Still's The Bayou Legend. And then in 2000, there was a major excerpt done at one of our conferences in the Atlanta night of excerpts from Dr. Sharon Willis's The Opera Singer. But they were full with excitement, and William Warfield in 2000 was a guest performer on a concert that featured him, Ben Matthews, and the younger, Robert Sims. The three of them formed a group that performed for the 2000 convention here in Atlanta. The rest is history. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anthony Philpott, and I am the current Vice President of the Carol Bryce Music Association. I bring you warm regards from our branch president, Miss Elvira Green. The Carol Bryce Music Association was chartered in 2012 as North Carolina's statewide branch of the National Association of Negro Musicians Incorporated. The want and need for a division of NAM in our state led to a group of North Carolina's finest musicians gathering in the home of Dr. Louise Toppin for the initial meeting of our branch. Serving as our charter president was Miss Elvira Green.
O thou that tellest good tidings to Zion, get thee up into the high mountain. O thou that tellest good tidings to Zion, get thee up into the high
In the 8 years of our existence, our branch has boasted a number of talented musicians, ranging from concert instrumentalists, operatic stars, educators, administrators, and students. Our branch is named after the trailblazing contralto concert singer, Carol Bryce.
My brother wanna get religion, go down in the lonesome valley. My brother wanna get religion, go down in the lonesome valley.
We are one of the newer branches of NAM, but we have worked to make our presence known within the organization. Our branch has represented the Southeastern Region on 3 occasions in the national round of the annual scholarship competition. Our branch has presented master classes and musical concerts, all in support of the mission of NAM to preserve and promote the music of African Americans.
Oh
and the organizing president for the Chattanooga chapter of the NAM, the Society for the Preservation of African American Song. We undertook the organization of this project basically after consultation with Dr. Carter, who was moving into the role of the national president. And, you know, some musicians thought in this city that it was kind of bad that the national president resided here in Chattanooga, and we didn't have a chapter here to represent NAM. So we engaged in an aggressive effort to reach out to local musicians to invite them to be a part of our NAM chapter. We organized at one point we had as many as 40 members who had paid their dues for the year. I do remember the national convention being held here in Chattanooga, and in January of that year the national board met here in Chattanooga, and some of our members had an opportunity to actually meet board members who had traveled here for that session. We sponsored several competitions, and in accordance with NAM guidelines, we sponsored an organ competition, and a candidate had two candidates to compete against each other, and one went to the regional competition, which was held in Houston, Texas, and in preparation for the national convention, which was the focus that year was on organ. The chapter took a lull for a while, and now it's being reactivated, and obviously Michael Mitchell has engaged himself in a leadership role and is diligently working toward rebuilding the NAM chapter. We were pretty active. We met regularly. We undertook a project to identify church musicians, and particularly church musicians that had served in that capacity for 50 or more years. And it was surprising the number of musicians that had served every week and had never been recognized, so we recognized them. Our chapter also sponsored a music workshop where we had artists such as the late Mr. Glenn Burley, who came in. We had the artist from Atlanta, the organist at Friendship Church in Atlanta, and his name escapes me right now, but it will come back, and did a workshop on primarily promoting music of GIA. And so, you know, we were able to, through NAM, expose the Chattanooga community to the art of music, and in a professional manner. So it's been a pleasure to, you know, to have had some involvement with that organization. And now, as I've reached a retirement age, ready to re-engage myself in helping promote the National Association of Negro Musicians. Personally, I had an opportunity to attend conferences in St. Louis and Las Vegas and here in Chattanooga, and it's just been a wonderful experience for me musically. You know, every city has its own kind of diamond musician, and you know, I don't think Chattanooga realizes the diamond that we had here in Dr. Carter. One of my non-African American friends made a comment to me once that the Dr. Carter and the Chattanooga Choral Society and his music were a hidden treasure right here in the city of Chattanooga. And so she worked diligently with us to bring NAM and the Chattanooga Choral Society to the forefront in music here in our city. So those were some of the beginnings of the chapter here in Chattanooga. And so here in 2020, I look forward for us moving forward and doing greater things under Michael's leadership.
All right, so what about when you came into NAM? How did you come involved with NAM?
Well, actually, I went in through the Chicago Music Association.
Huh.
Or was it the Debt Club? I'm not one of those in Chicago. Now I'll tell you how, because I was a choir director at Hampton, and I was touring, and they were very supportive. Chicago was a hub for Hampton.
Okay.
So every year I did a big concert, man. I had tremendous support with the, I don't know, whichever one Stone had. Because Stone.
That was CMA then. No, that might have been a Deck Club, yeah.
Was he? I don't know which one he was, but he pulled me. I mean, he was a go-getter.
Uh-huh.
Stone was as crazy as hell, as you would, excuse me. Did y'all know Stone?
I did not.
Oh boy, you got it. Oh God. Stone was crazy as hell, but I mean, he was a go-getter. I mean, he ran the organization. Tremendous respect among you know. Mm-hmm. I think he was probably the president longer than anybody. I don't know. The president a few years. But did you know there was a Scenic City chapter of NAM in 1921 or 27?
Really?
Yes, here in Chattanooga. It's listed in the history.
Oh, wow. Is that John Worth, ma'am, or?
Chattanooga.
Wow.
I just saw it, and I wanted to try to get to the library and see if there was anything else, but it was listed in the history.
Oh, wow.
I hadn't read the history, but I mean, I was going through the list of chapters that they used to have. Now that's something somebody should go through, because there were chapters everywhere, man. Let me go get the book and show you real quick. It was Mountain City Club.
Okay.
Mountain City Club was named the Chattanooga chapter. And there were Nashville Local Music Study Club in Nashville. There were 3 chapters, 5 branches in Chattanooga. 1 in Knoxville, 6 in Nashville. I mean, it goes, that's the way, you know, the list of branches, and that's what I mean, it starts here, and they got them here by state that they've been somewhere. Somebody needs to get in there and get through that history.
All right, so let me ask you this. What's your greatest memory from NAM?
Really, one thing that stands out for me was a performance by Farrakhan in the violin.
Farrakhan? Louis Farrakhan?
Yeah. He played Beethoven violin concerto.
Really?
That can play. I don't know if that one stands out. I remember being in Chicago in the Auditorium Theater, and it was big hall, and hearing him play. And what's her name? The girl who was doing the master classes on spirituals and talking to, can't remember her name, very fine piano, crazy lady. Okay, and they don't do that. They used the Sylvia.
Okay, Sylvia Lee.
Lee. Yeah, Sylvia played for it.
Oh, wow.
And that hasn't been too long. Well, that was before my administration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was one of the funnest. I remember that. Of course, Bill Warfield has been was a friend of mine for years. From the time I went to school to New York in '67, so I had known him.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Don Lee White, my best friend. So we got actually. Don and I didn't become friends until sometime in the '80s. While he started coming to Hampton and stuff. But he really secured my relationship with NANM.
Okay.
Because he was so involved in it.
All right.
And so he really pulled me. He pulled Wendell, he pulled all of us. When he came to Hampton, then he started pulling all of us in.
Okay. So what about the funniest thing that ever happened that you remember? The funniest thing.
Funniest thing? I don't know. I have no idea.
Those fashion shows. Those
Well,
fashion
that's what I was
shows
thinking.
here.
Theodore Charles Stone again, because the fashion shows. I was thinking about that. I was going to say Stone again, but that would probably, I don't know. And I wouldn't say it because it was funny, but the most entertaining, I guess. It wasn't so funny, but I mean, that's what they live to dress up and do that stuff.
Okay. Dress up at the conventions, huh? To dress up at the convention.
Yeah.
Right.
And do the fashion show at the luncheon time. There was a luncheon for fashion show, I think, was for the Life Members Guild or something, yeah.
All right, and so how has NAM impacted you, your career, or you as a person?
Well, the thing that I like so was the opportunity. Of course, we have so many, well, we didn't have, how shall I put it? In the time I was growing up, we had a few superstars, performers. We don't, today you got so many, you don't know them all.
Okay.
There's so many. But during my day, you knew who the performers were. And you start talking about Adele Addison and George Shirley and, wow, I'm even forgetting names now. Grace Bumbry, all those folks were around, would come to convention, and I had the opportunity, William Dawson, Jester Harrison, I had the opportunity to see Eva Jesse. I met all those people through NAM. I mean, my contacts with all these composers, it was just, that was the place to go and be able to rub shoulders and elbows with, it was just, I think with those kind of people or models, I think that was probably one of the greatest influences I had.
And that's
Martina Aurora, I remember meeting her in Detroit, having a few scotches with her and all of that stuff. But no, it just, there were just wonderful things.
Wow, I feel the same way. Like with you and all the people that are there now. That's still, it's amazing. That all that talent is in one space.
Oh yeah. So it really, that has been one of the nicest things I think was able. That for me as a young conductor and a young striving conductor to be embraced and encouraged, and then to go on and become, somewhat a part of that. I shouldn't be saying I've never become what they became, but that's my love.
what songs are you ladies playing these days on your violin and cello?
Well, basically, we're on a CSAS. That's where I play my cello. We've been just doing ours from books,
Mm-hmm.
and then been doing it on Zoom, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Well, it's good to meet with you all on Zoom. And I guess you all are the ones that are supposed to be asking the questions. So I have to admit, I apologize for cheating by asking a question before you guys.
Okay, so how long have you been playing?
Well, I have been playing, let's see, I guess I would have to say that it will be 50 years.
50?
Yeah. It's been a while, shall we say. I started playing, how old are you?
I'm 12.
12, okay. I started playing cello when I was 10. So I'll let you do the math from there. But the cello was not the first instrument that I learned how to play. But I guess I would have to say it's the instrument that I'm still some days surprised at how long it's been and how I have come to play like I do. And yeah. Oh, I guess that's long answer number one. Yeah. How was it that you began playing cello?
Well, my dad had a dream that he could, that we were gonna, like, each one of us are gonna be playing cello. Like each one of us gonna be playing an instrument. So, like, everybody, each one of his kids will be playing an instrument. And, like, since, like my name is J.A. and her name is J.E. And, like, each one of our names starts with a J. And we go in, like, A-I-O-U order. But, like, we don't have a U, so, like, he was going to call our orchestra the Missing U. So.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. I have to admit, I haven't asked my parents who are in their 80s now, I haven't asked them in quite a while what their dream was about me, but I can tell you that I grew up in a musical family, so I guess the dream was, you know, sort of modeled before me. And, you know, looking back, I'm very thankful for the experiences that I've had, that I've managed to benefit from so many different great teachers and opportunities to learn. So the one thing I would say is that whether it feels comfortable or not, try to appreciate all of the instruction that you get, especially in those early years, because you're setting the foundation that everything else that you learn is going to build upon. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's see. As I'm looking at the screen, the cellists are wearing glasses, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So Genesis is the cellist?
I am. Jada.
Okay. And J.A., how do you like playing the violin? Have you tried to experiment on the cello?
Have you?
Just experiment, just for fun? See what the difference is? Okay. Well, I don't think it's a bad thing to try just to see what the difference is. Do you all still have the tape, the identificational tape on your fingerboards?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that guides your fingers. Yeah, I only had one piece of tape, and it was actually for my thumb and my my thumb and my second finger. And I still teach that way, you know, because that, you know, once you get these two fingers lined up, and, you know, the rest of your fingers gradually learn where the notes are and where you have to keep your fingers spaced so that the notes are consistently in tune. Okay? All right. What's your next question?
What motivates you to practice?
Well, wow, that's a great question for a time like this. You know, what motivates me? I guess the first thing that motivates me is my love of music. And, you know, the thing that is such a challenge right now for me is that I can count the number of opportunities that I've been invited to go and play somewhere, or maybe to sometimes sit in my office in front of the computer and play. I can count those opportunities still on one hand since March, you know, and like a lot of people all over the world, I had it wasn't a terribly busy schedule, but it was one where, I had a lot of things that had just materialized that I'd been asked to do as a musician. And I was certainly preparing and looking forward to doing those things. And then this pandemic hit and everything shut down, everything closed up. And I think I went through about a 2-week period where I just really, I was kind of just stuck in a fog, watching the news like we still are, keeping the masks on, distancing, hand sanitizer, the whole deal. But, I think that, for string players, it's maybe not so bad because we can wear masks and we can spread out and still hear each other and still see. But vocalists that sing in choirs and folks that are playing in bands and people who play shows that play in an orchestra pit, and not to mention the dancers, people who work in close quarters to do what they do artistically. All of that work going away and all of the organizations closing down, that's really thrown a lot of people into a tailspin. And again, thankfully, for the internet and for Zoom and for, being able to meet like this online, that's been a great opportunity for some people to still practice what they do, but we've been forced to do it differently, or much more differently than we did, say, back in, last Christmas or January. So, but back to your question, what motivates me to practice is my love of music, but also having a project or having a goal in mind. It may be to play a certain piece, or it may be to learn a certain group of pieces and to do a program. And I mean, I've been doing things like that since I was in college as a student, as an undergraduate. So it's been a long time. So I still will sometimes sit down and look at my library of cello music or chamber music, and I'll just dream up programs to, and there may be programs that I might not ever get to do, but it's sort of, it's my way of dreaming in music time, so to speak. So things like that, and all of the programs that I dream up, I don't get to do them all, but there are many that do become an actual, a live performed program. So one of the things that, dreaming up doing is a series of programs that will probably have to happen like this, with the exception of one other person, maybe a pianist or a vocalist, and we're socially distanced, and the performance will be done online. Now, the whole question of how to invite people in and who controls who comes in, I probably will need some assistance with that, or it'll be the kind of thing almost like, in the before times, because that's what we call it now. Before the pandemic, we call that the before times. Someone would be the host and would usher people in and get them seated and make sure they're comfortable, and then the performance would eventually start. So I guess I'm going to have to learn how to function as both host and performer online. And, I'm going to have to figure out how to do certain things that I used to just write down and print out and let people read. So, it's interesting. It's exciting in a strange kind of way, but thankfully it is something that has helped keep at least my artistic imagination, inspired and functioning. I have to admit, I've read a lot more books in the past 4 months than I've learned entire pieces. Because the weird thing is that, when you don't have an orchestra concert coming up, you don't know what the program's going to be. And, I have to admit, I haven't been practicing as much as I would have had the shutdown not occurred, but at my age, sometimes my practice routine is to prepare for a rehearsal that's a preparation for a concert. So, at my stage of the game, I have a slightly different way of practicing, so to speak. Okay. So, what motivates you to practice?
Mainly just because most of the time we have to, if we do it, we have to do it for a grade. And most of the time just being my best. And just being able to make other people just for other people to just see how far I've come from from when I first started to now, and just
yeah. Well, let me tell you what another part of my original answer. When I was your age, I have to admit, looking back now, that I practiced for at least 3, sometimes 4 different reasons. And I bet you can relate to some of these reasons. My first reason was, yes, I loved music. I still love music. I love listening to it. I love participating in it. I love the feeling that I get when I hear some music that I can relate to. And when I'm in a performance, when I get to play music like that, it's also very exhilarating. It's very meaningful. It's the kind of thing that gets me up out of bed, early in the morning, to do it. But when I was growing up, I have to admit that I practiced not always because I loved music, but I practiced because I felt a little guilty when I didn't practice. I bet y'all can kind of relate to that. We don't like having bad lessons. We don't like that feeling of being unprepared. And most importantly, I think because we're performers, we don't like the feeling of a performance not going well because you didn't prepare through practice. Now, what you'll learn in time is that you can practice to prepare for a rehearsal, and the rehearsal prepares you for the performance. But many times it takes more than one performance to really get comfortable with playing the piece. So, don't try not to tell yourself that you're going to do all this practicing just so you can perform it right once. You want to perform well as a consistent practice. Okay. So I practice partly out of guilt. I think the other part of guilt that drove me to practice is because I recognized right away the investment that my parents were making in both my instrument and my lessons. And so that that motivated me to practice. You know, it's not always the best kind of guilt and motivation, but it has to get done. Another part of my motivation to practice, particularly when I got into high school and college as an undergraduate, honestly was fear. And, you know, fear can show up in two forms. That shivering fear where you feel like you're gonna, you know, be attacked if you don't practice. That's really not the fear, but it's a good idea to have just a little bit of that, enough to make you nervous and to make you concentrate. But the other fear was the fear of not doing my best, you know, and I'll bet that even at your age now, your parents are telling you, make sure that you put your best foot forward. One, because it reflects on them, and they're putting their best foot forward so that you can put your best foot forward. Right, Dad? You know, but so, you know, the fear of not doing your best, I think that's a healthy kind of fear to have. And that kind of fear is what I believe makes most musicians and artists practice and work very hard at what they do. Because the last feeling you want to have to deal with when you look in the mirror is that feeling that you let yourself down. You know, so, you know, don't go there. Just practice, you know, very consistently. Okay. And then, you know, honestly, once you can get past the guilt and the fear, then you can really embrace the love of music and the love of doing music. let me ask you all a question. Do you all remember the big NAM convention in Chicago last summer?
Mm-hmm.
How'd you like it? Did you get to see very many events? Because there are everything, a lot of stuff going on all week.
Yeah. We were in one of them, and then we saw the parade. Yeah, we saw the parade, and then we saw all the events that they had on the last day and in between that. So.
Okay. Oh, good, good. Yeah, I had a very nice time. I was busier during the first part of the week, from the Sunday through Tuesday. That's when I had a lot of, well, it wasn't a lot of playing. And then I had to play a concert on, I think it was Friday. I think it was that last full day. And then my wife and I got to go see Hamilton the next day. So that was our treat. That was our treat to ourselves after, you know, the drive up from, you all came from Tennessee, right? Yeah, so we came from North Carolina. So we probably drove about the same distance to get there. And so we took 2 days to drive up. My wife is from Chicago, so it was kind of a homecoming for her. And, so, you know, we had enough time to, you know, do some sightseeing and, you know, before the conference started. And then we got to, went to see Hamilton, which was right, you know, the next block over from the hotel the next day. And then our trip back home, we took just about as much time to get back home. I have a brother who lives in Indianapolis, so we drove to Indianapolis and stayed overnight, visited with him and his wife, and then gradually moseyed back home to North Carolina. But had a wonderful time. Yeah. Let's see. Well, have you all started school yet?
Mm-hmm. Well, we started, but like I haven't actually been to school because like my first day will be Thursday. We've just been doing Zoom calls from.
Yeah. Okay. Now, are you all are the schools in Tennessee modified, or is everything online now?
Well, we're doing it so we have these stations. So like we have these phases. So like if you're in phase 1, then like we all go to school. And like phase 1 is where nobody goes to school, and then phase 2 is where like you go half and half kind of, and like we're sent into groups where there's A-day people and B-day people. So like each group will come over there at different spots, and then group 3 is basically the same exact thing, and then group 4 is where it's like nothing really happens. Where everybody goes to school, yeah.
Right. Everybody stays apart and tries to just stay healthy. Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope you have a safe, healthy, and interesting school year. My classes at the university, I teach at North Carolina Central University here in Durham, North Carolina. And we just had our faculty welcome back conference this morning. And so I listened in to our chancellor, our, university president welcome the faculty and staff back. I have a faculty meeting on, I think it's Thursday morning. And then classes start on Monday. But I think most of the classes in the Department of Music are going to be taught online. So I'll be seeing lots of students and dealing with lots of email and scanned documents, and there's a type of course shell called Blackboard, and I've used it for almost 10 years now, and there are still some things that I'm learning how to do better, but all of that is gradually getting started. Of course, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill was in the news just yesterday because they've had students come back to campus and are already testing positive for the virus. So I haven't heard any news from Duke University, which is even closer to NC Central. So hopefully, I've heard a few stories, but nothing that the news networks have broadcasted about. I guess the thing is when we've been, separated from one another, when we get a chance to come back together, it's going to be really hard to keep our distance because one, we've been on a shutdown for 4 months, so we got to stay healthy because if we don't,
What was one of the most famous people you have? Oh, go ahead.
Who's the most famous people you have played for?
Famous people. Let's see. I have played with a number of well-known musicians. I would say most recently, just a few weeks after the conference in Chicago, I got to play on a concert with the African-American opera star Denise Graves at the Gateways Festival. In fact, one of the vocalists that sang in the competition in Chicago for NANM also got to perform at one of the other concerts in Rochester for the Gateways Festival. Actually, the next chance you get, go online and do a YouTube search and just type in Gateways Music Festival. And, you can see, let's see, I think they have a YouTube channel that you can listen to concerts back as far as 2013, I think it is. And the festival happens during the odd numbered years, 2011, 13, 15, 17, 19. So but I played with Denise Graves just last summer. I've also played with the pianist Andre Watts, who is now, man, he must be in his 80s now. I don't think he's officially retired from the stage, but I know he's not performing as much anymore now. Let's see. I did get to play long time ago with an African-American pianist by the name of Natalie Hinderis. In fact, I know there are a lot of people who come to the NAM conferences that knew Natalie Hinderis personally. Let's see. Another pianist by the name of Leon Bates, who also has, in fact, he was a student of Natalie Hinderis. He's also a pianist. Let's see. While she was alive, I got to play with and play for Aretha Franklin, Once Upon a Time. Let's see. I got to play, before I joined the faculty at North Carolina Central University, I was living up in the Michigan area. I'm originally from Detroit, so I got to play a lot of shows that involve Motown artists. So I got to play, I got to back up people like the Four Tops and Lou Rawls and Smokey Robinson. But that, my goodness, that was almost 25, 30 years ago now that I got to play with them. I haven't gotten to, let's see, well, Denise Graves is the most recent famous person I've gotten to accompany. But, she's a wonderful vocalist, very nice. And it was a lot of fun just to be on the same stage as her for just a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.